wish for them to be swept away by some calendar change. It doesn't work like that, because how would that possibly benefit one's growth? You know, we have to go through each stage and each challenge and each unfoldment one by one, and that's a truly holy gift, a sacred gift. To have that rug pulled from under our feet, although it might look very convenient to see 101 little problems that we all have in our lives washed away, it actually doesn't help us whatsoever. So why would that occur? I just think that people need to contemplate that. Many people do, but even old walkers on the path who've been walking the spiritual path all their lives, 40, 50 years, 1,000 years, it doesn't matter. You can still do good work and you can still live with virtue and miss the fundamentals. So sometimes it takes a 22-year-old to come along and say something of profound wisdom to pierce your own self-deception. So it's a thing of humbleness as well, this, to actually look upon yourself rather than look to the outside.
Why, going back to one of the things you said, why, if we are spirits having a human experience, does it seem that there are so many people still asleep to, you know, the energies that are around them, metaphysical changes, all of those things? I mean, there seems like there's this big slumber. I guess when I was contemplating this years ago, back in the late 90s, looking forward, and again, there's a lesson in that for me as well, but looking forward, you know, it was more about people waking up to their spiritual selves that I was kind of anticipating. And on one level it's happened. I mean, you certainly see more metaphysical and philosophical material out there, but, you know, and there's been so many paradigm shifts within society, but there still seems to be this reluctance to actually look at people's shadow or stuff or whatever you want to call it. So why do you think that is?
People sleep to protect themselves. When people fear evolution, like the caterpillar would fear its evolution and its dissolution before it turned into a butterfly, so the human mind fears its own evolution. That's the central problem. And it's rather an ironic one, of course, because that's the thing that we're trying to bring about. So the closer you bring people to that evolution, the scarier it gets, quite frankly. And you have to say, again, you have to stand back and tell the truth. And you have to speak the truth to yourself. You have to see the truth in the lives of those around you. And the truth is that people don't really want spiritual growth. They don't really want enlightenment, because they are aware at a deep level that with that inner change comes an inevitable transformation of the outside as well. And if somebody spent 20 or 30 or 50 or 70 years building a third density physical life with great investment in that life, then what will it mean to have that swept away? Because when you begin spiritual work, it, of course, as you appreciate, it begins first and foremost with yourself, and that is the lens through which the whole thing occurs. So to be spiritual is to constantly work on yourself as an open system, as a work in progress, as an art project, as a canvas that's perpetually changing. And what it means is that you're always examining your very foundations, really. So somebody like yourself, it's deceptively easy to forget how early on in that journey, what a paradigm-cracking, scary thing it is to go to your very foundations, lay as they are beneath the surface that we don't usually look at, let alone become aware of, to go to those foundations and begin to rebuild them. Because until you do that with awareness, everything you build on those foundations is on shaky ground. And no matter how magnificent the towers and turrets and spires that we build, if that foundation isn't right, then it's all for nothing, really. And I think that's the chief problem here, that we have all these politicians and celebrities and business people and technologists and scientists and goodness knows what, and artists and musicians even. It's not all the kind of suit and tie people. And they've built these amazing structures in the life, seem very culturally rich and very alluring, but we know that beneath the surface those foundations have crumbled, really, and it's only going to take a slight gust of wind to blow the whole thing over. And so at a broader level, you can see that there's some truth in that, but at a personal level, if we ever wonder why some of our friends and family aren't quite as interested in this stuff as we are, it's because they're not prepared to go back to the foundations, because it seems like too much work, to be quite honest. So the deal, if you like, the bargain of saying, well, dig beneath your own psychological surface, go to the foundations, rebuild them. You may have to sweep away a few of the structures you've built, and your whole life will transform. You know, if you approach somebody with that deal, they're going to sort of raise their eyebrows, scratch the chin, and probably think, well, that sounds very nice, but I think instead I'll just read a spiritual book, and that's okay. That's enough for me right now. So it's really a radical path, being a spiritual person. Not only do you place yourself in a minority on this planet, but it's also, in a third density state, a thankless job. There's not actually much that comes with it. And, of course, the reward, if you want to think of it in that way, not that this is a marketplace, but we can't help but think of, in terms of how it benefits us. The reward is that we get higher dimensional or higher density endeavor and higher density and higher dimensional experience. So we begin, our perceptions deepen, we see more, we become more connected, synchronicities increase, and to put it bluntly, life re-magics itself, and we actually start to live in the true world, not the fake construct world. And so once you glimpse that, and once you actually put 2 feet on the path, which again not many people do, lots of people put 1 foot on the path, but to actually put your whole commitment into it and put 2 feet on that path, once you do that, you can never go back, because you wouldn't want to. You will never turn back from that, because it's the true path, and it's the path of human beings. It's nothing unusual as such, but a certain percentage of the people on this planet have failed to be conditioned by what I call the construct, which is like the artificial reality. And any sort of conspiratorial groups who might want to keep people dumb and entertained and sedated. You know, that doesn't work with everybody. So for me, that never quite worked. Although I was immersed in popular culture like everyone else as a child and a young man, it never really penetrated, it never really got in. And so my unfoldment was quite natural. It seemed perfectly okay to do. And it came quite easily in a way. Not that the path is easy, but the initial process for me was all right. I was very fortunate in that respect. What's weird is when you look around and you realize that nobody else is doing it. Nobody. And you have to begin to change your life if you'd like to have proximity to other people who are engaged with their unfoldment. At first, when you wake up yourself, there's no one else doing it. It's pretty universal experience that the people around you are not doing it. So it's only with time, and as you go to events and workshops and conferences and speak to people and stuff, you become aware that there are a lot of other people doing this. And the beautiful thing about this technology we have, which is really just a surrogate for the true psychic core technology, but we've forgotten how to use that for the moment. The internet reminds us of the principle of that. And it allows us to connect with each other as we're doing now and as we all do in our personal lives as well. And I think that that gives us a sense that it isn't necessarily the case that the point of a shift is to wake everybody up. I have never felt that, and I still do not feel that. I think there's a certain critical mass of people who carry the frequency, who hold the space for consciousness to evolve properly. And I think that that is very closely bound to nature, if you like, to the planet itself. And it's not necessary for everybody to wake up in some ways. And quite frankly, and this is quite controversial, but not everybody on Earth is from the same place. So